If the Milky Way galaxy were the size of the United States, our whole star system would only be a sphere 2 inches across, and the sun itself would be the size of a period at the end of a sentence. And the nearest star system to ours would be about a football field's distance away, and all other stars are roughly that distance from one another.
Cool story, Mr. Black Pigeon. I just want to point out one thing before we really get into the meat of this video. And you might think I'm nitpicking, and maybe I am. I don't know, but I find even the title of this video inaccurate. The video is titled, Why Atheism is Vacuous Grandiloquence. Now, if you look up the word grandiloquence, you'll find definitions such as these. Now, I've chosen 3 because sometimes online dictionaries offer differing definitions. But here's one. A lofty, extravagantly colorful, pompous, or bombastic style, manner, or quality, especially in language. You'll see that the other 2 definitions are very similar, but basically it means lofty, pompous, or bombastic speech. What exactly is bombastic, lofty, or pompous about saying you don't believe a supernatural claim someone else has made? That is very little evidence, and certainly no good evidence, to back it up. If anyone is being grandiloquent, you'd think it would be the religious who claim that this all-powerful being cares deeply about them, who protects them, who helps them find their car keys, who can save their daughter if she's threatened by a tsunami, but who will let thousands of other people drown to death. That's grandiloquence. Simply saying you don't believe those claims is anything but grandiloquent. It's reasonable. Now, that doesn't mean some atheists can't come off as being pompous or lofty, but that isn't atheism being grandiloquent. But instead it's the way certain individuals choose to behave on an individual level. It's not endemic to atheism, and there's nothing pompous or lofty about simply voicing a disbelief in wild supernatural claims, such as those the religious often make. Anyhow, enough about the title. Carry on.
And the Milky Way is just one out of a billion galaxies in the observable universe.
Okay, so at this point I can't necessarily say that I disagree with this guy. But there's something disconcerting about hearing someone rattle off basic facts while a series of spastic, seizure-inducing images flashes across the screen. I almost feel like I should be watching this strapped to a chair with my eyes forced open.
Oh, look at the pretty lights.
When you compare the sheer size of the universe, human life looks not only tiny, but about as significant as the bacteria that you kill without thought every time you brush your teeth. Now, with that in mind, try and imagine that there is an extra-dimensional being of unlimited power. This being is both omniscient and can create and just as easily destroy interdimensional infinite universes on a whim. Now, imagine this eternal, extra-dimensional, omnipotent being micromanaging and observing in an obsessive-compulsive manner over the daily behavior of all humans as well as the depths of our belief in him. Much the same way we would observe plaque.
Okay, so I'm imagining this being, and it sounds like made-up religious babble to me. It also sounds unlikely to exist. Actually, the word unlikely sounds far too weak a word to describe how improbable such a being truly is, especially when you look at the universe on the same scale as you're describing right now. So yes, I can imagine it. I can also imagine Raistlin Majir, but that doesn't mean I believe he physically exists or that he can throw fireballs in my direction. And the arguments that the religious often employ, such as, we can't know everything, or you can't say with 100% certainty that Raistlin doesn't exist somewhere out there, aren't convincing in the slightest. These kinds of arguments are embarrassing and shouldn't be taken seriously by any thinking person.
Except for the fact that if plaque doesn't worship us in the exact correct manner we demand, we'd be hard-pressed to selectively punish them individually for all eternity.
He's not coming right out and saying it, but it sounds like this guy's at least a little bit on our side.
And actually, this omniscient entity would only really obsess with the portion of humanity that was able to be lucky enough to not only suspend disbelief, but also find the one true correct method in which to offer up worship to this deity out of the tens of thousands of religions that have come and gone throughout the millennia.
Yeah, I might be a little slow on the uptake, but I'm pretty sure he's being sarcastic about Christianity. Godless Cranium, are you sure you invited me to the right video?
Yeah. Sorry. I was going to cut out this part, but I think it puts the rest of his video into context. Don't worry, the good parts are coming right up. Sit tight and try not to sweat too much in that giant coat.
This is why you find many thoughtful atheists who look at the enormity of existence and cannot find their spirituality in the existing religions on offer, nor can they see a divine spark with regards to consciousness and life.
Okay, so here's where this guy starts to get off track. While he seems to express some level of agreement with atheists, he does so in a condescending way that's just loaded with backhanded insinuations. It almost makes me suspect he was setting us up by pretending to be our friends. He talks about how we cannot find our spirituality, as if it's something we want or should want but just can't find. And then, while explaining why we can't find it, he seems to imply that spirituality is a kind of default position, or at least something we as humans naturally gravitate to, but that atheists just get hung up on things like organized religion and the size of the universe. Now sure, I'll grant these things might play into our disbelief in God, but we shouldn't need them to solve the mystery of what makes us atheists, because it shouldn't be a mystery at all. Quite frankly, the fact that we doubt the existence of a giant invisible being just isn't that weird. And when someone acts like it is, I start to get leery about where he's taking the conversation. As for the idea that we've lost spirituality, I just don't see it that way. Even in its most broadly defined, benign, warm and fuzzy, non-fundamentalist form, spirituality does nothing more than offer us a false sense of meaning and give us permission to stop thinking about issues before we've given them our full consideration. Take this divine spark behind our consciousness he mentioned. Are we really missing something because we don't feel like there's something godlike behind our consciousness? Or are we better off actually exploring where our thoughts come from, being awed by the fact that we're alive without being mystified by it? Even on a day-to-day basis, I can better understand things ranging from my love for my family to my general sense of awe to how I confront my death when I leave spirituality out of it. I can more constructively process and deal with my personal faults and my conflicts with others without these issues being muddied with ideas like sin or karma. I don't miss my spirituality. I see what I had when I was spiritual, and I see what I have now, and I prefer this. But thank you for your concern, I guess.
All of this is an accident.
Yeah, don't say it's all an accident. Few atheists call the universe an accident, and when you characterize us as saying so, you're tipping your hand and showing you at least draw your vocabulary, if not your ideas, from organized religious apologetics.
Thus, I'm not saying God does or does not exist, but as we understand the universe, it seems very strange that a creature with this amount of power would not only look like us, but actually care about things like sloth, gluttony, avarice, among other sins. It could be also that we are looking at reality inside out, where standard science would have you believe that matter gives rise to consciousness, rather than the other way around.
Sure, I guess consciousness might give rise to matter. But have you seen this happen? Or even a reasonable indication that it might happen? I doubt it. But on the other hand, we know exactly how matter produces consciousness. We can observe the mechanics of how our brains generate thoughts and how various stresses or chemical substances can alter those thought processes. So when you treat consciousness as a mystery and propose as a reasonable alternative that consciousness gives rise to matter instead, you're putting a wild guess on par with observed phenomena. This is not a useful or intelligent thing to do. My guard had already gone up when you uttered the words standard science. Phrases like those are almost always used to characterize science as arbitrary or cultural as a prelude to introducing nonsense as a reasonable alternative. And that's exactly what you proceeded to do.
But either way, any way you look at it, we do not understand the universe that we inhabit, nor especially the uniqueness of consciousness. And in an upcoming video, I'm going to try and explain why it will probably be impossible for us to ever do so.
Perhaps you're right, but people like Christoph Koch of the Allen Institute of Brain Science disagree with you. When asked if we'll ever understand the nature of consciousness, he replied, "There's little rationale for burying into such defeatist talk, and every reason to look forward to the day, not that far off, when science will come to a naturalized, quantitative, and predictive understanding of consciousness and its place in the universe. We already understand a great deal about the brain. Sure, there are still gaps in our knowledge, but given time, I personally think we will figure out the unique nature of consciousness. I also think science is far more likely to lead to understanding than believing in supernatural beings like you described in your opening sequence.
Without assistance, that is. Also, for clarity, I have for many years considered myself an agnostic theist, just making this clear before the inevitable rebuttal videos from the skeptic community surface and try to manufacture controversy.
Wait, you put a video out there on YouTube, and you're trying to paint any responses to that video as merely an attempt to manufacture controversy? No, sir. Those videos, including this one, are attempts to actually engage with your point of view, and we're putting out our own ideas in opposition to your own. That's not manufacturing controversy. Second, I'd love to hear your thoughts on your own religious beliefs, especially since your opening sequence, at least to my mind anyways, lends itself much more to a non-believer's worldview than to one of an agnostic theist.
But just so we are clear, I am not Christian, nor do I identify as a Christian. While some atheists are content with not believing in God and allowing others their choice to do the opposite,
So some atheists are content to sit there and keep their mouths shut. But on the other hand, you have the
loud and screeching minority that has made it their job to tell you that if you believe in God, you are stupid.
okay, whether or not you're a Christian, you couldn't script a more deliberately ugly caricature of atheists. At this point, he's made it clear that he does not understand the diverse community of atheists and their varied ways of expressing their varied objections to religion, nor does he have any interest in trying to. Instead, he wants to pat quiet atheists on the head and tell them it's nice that they sit in their corner and believe what they want, while insulting and dismissing any of us who have the audacity to actually open our mouths. This isn't the language of a thoughtful agnostic theist seeker trying to help people find their place between belief and disbelief. He's going straight to simple-minded stereotypes of atheists that are drawn straight out of and almost certainly meant to appeal to fundamentalist Christian culture. And this plainly belies any open-minded label he tries to assume. And if this weren't enough, let's watch him continue to pile on the loaded word.
Even erudite and very intelligent men like Richard Dawkins proselytize. That's right, they proselytize by explaining that God does not exist and people who believe in a prime mover are, in his words, delusional. And he and people like him, including Sam Harris and the late Christopher Hitchens, are very well-spoken and educated men. The problem is, they and their lesser parrots only argue the concept of God on a philosophical or scientific level, but fail to observe the logical conclusions of their crusade against religion. While many that advocate atheism, and that atheists, in Dawkins' words, can be happy and moral people, and I do not disagree with this at all, advocates of atheism offer nothing, no substitute for the vast majority of people that do believe in God, nor do they even contemplate, let alone speak of the social vacuum that has been created in places like Europe with the fall of Christianity.
I'm curious what this vacuum is, because he never tells us anything about the state of affairs in Europe. If you look at this footage carefully, he just implies that there's trouble by showing an uncontextualized clip of police and stuff burning while he talks. This makes it look suspiciously like he's just trying to slip insinuations past us rather than dealing with fact. And the weird, disorganized collection of links he calls the notes for this video, including one to a Breitbart news story, don't exactly paint this video as a well-cited academic powerhouse. But all that aside, I'd ask how he determined that any unrest in Europe resulted from the absence of religion. Considering the state of Europe when it was Christian, say in the blood-soaked 17th century, he still has a long way to go before I'm convinced Europe went downhill with the decline of Christianity. But whatever you think of the state of modern Europe, conditions there arose from a variety of social and political factors. And when you try to reduce it all to the simple absence of Christianity, that tells me you're not prepared for or interested in any kind of real discussion. You're just hunting for a quick, easily digested explanation that your audience will find satisfying.
While Dawkins, Harris, and Hitchens, to their credit, were equally vocal in their denunciations of all religions, given the society in which they operate in and the potential populations that would be receptive to their arguments, the only real target for derision in the West is always singular. Targeting Christianity is always the easy option because it has always been an integral part of most of the West for at least 1,000 years. Criticism of Islam, on the other hand, has always carried with it the credible threat of violence.
I think that's a gross oversimplification. I think there are a range of other factors at play as well. For example, most Western atheists understand Christianity. Personally, I've read the Quran, but I don't have the same sort of understanding of Islam that I do of Christianity. I'm less comfortable criticizing Islam on a comprehensive level. I'm always working on improving my knowledge of Islam, but I don't criticize Islam less than Christianity because I fear violent retaliation, but because I understand it less. It's often spoken in a language I don't understand, and it's part of a culture I don't belong to. You have to understand something before you can properly criticize it. That being said, I have no problem criticizing Islam, especially the parts I do have a fairly good grasp on. I have no problem saying Islam isn't true or that it's causing untold amounts of suffering around the world. I'm not an Islam apologist, and I oppose the bad ideas contained within that religion, like I do the bad ideas in every other religion. Another reason I think many Western atheists are reluctant to criticize Islam is because it sometimes comes with a charge of racism. Most people are afraid of being smeared as a racist, even though Islam isn't a race. Those are a few more reasons why I think Western atheists might not criticize Islam with the same frequency as Christianity.
As we have now seen across the Western world.
Also, for me personally, I find very little value in voicing my criticisms of Islam to the Christians around me, just as I would find it pointless to travel to Saudi Arabia and trash Christianity over there. It's just not that relevant. Really, what do you think happens after Christians hear a critique of Islam? Do they stop and reflect on the inherent dangers of religion, including their own? Or do they walk away with a giant crusader's heart on because they heard someone reinforce their feelings about all them Muslims and terrorists? You have to work within your society to improve your society.
But this is the thing. Christianity has been a pillar of the Western world throughout its ascendance to its current prominence and dominance. Western culture has shaped Christianity just as much as Christianity has shaped Western culture.
So if Christianity is at all shaped, or even influenced by the culture that adopted it, then what is its function? What is it other than a label slapped on the ever-evolving morals and values of society? And why not just keep the morals and values while dropping the name and accompanying baggage of the religion?
The morality expressed and enforced in the teachings of the varied sects is uniquely Western in temperament and structure. This absolutism produced the modern world around us. It fosters charity, community, education, collectivism, and most importantly, family. This is what you're fighting when you fight Christianity, and this is what Christians are defending.
So, if you disagree with religion, then you're fighting against a happy family who's walking under a tree? Give me a f***ing break.
The vast majority of practicing Christians don't care if snakes can talk, if parting the Red Sea actually ever happened, or if Jesus was really able to turn water into wine. They care about their communities and culture as well as the belief that there is a higher power that helps guide their own moral agency.
Citations, please? A lot of Christians might not care about these things, but a huge and very vocal number of them do. And between the rigid fundamentalists on one side and the most liberal of Christians on the other, there's a vast fuzzy gray area filled with people who care about biblical literalism to various degrees, often identifying with the Bible without giving much thought to how much of it they accept or reject. So please don't pretend most Christians have a benign belief in a higher power that's not influenced by Scripture.
I just wanted to add a few statistics that back up what Zod just said. In 2016, Gallup held a poll. Gallup also asked people about angels, heaven, hell, and the devil, giving them 3 options: believe in, not sure about, and don't believe in. 72% said they believe in angels, 12% said not sure about, and 16% did not believe. 71% believe in heaven, 14% were not sure, 15% said no. 64% believe in hell, 13% weren't sure, 22% said no. And the devil take the hindmost, 61% believe, 12% not sure, and 27% do not believe. That's a huge percentage of people who believe in supernatural demons and angels. They literally believe in those things, and that's a problem. In fact, according to Pew, more people believe in angels in heaven than evolution. Quote, only a minority of Americans fully accept evolution through natural selection. Roughly 6 in 10 US adults, 62%, say humans have evolved over time, according to data from the Pew Research Center's Religious Landscape Study, but only a little more than half of them, 33% of all Americans, express the belief that humans and other living things evolved solely due to the natural processes. A quarter of US adults, 25%, say evolution was guided by a supreme being. The same survey found that 34% of Americans reject evolution entirely, saying humans and other living things have existed in their present form since the beginning of time. I mean, that's embarrassing. It really is.
When your average fedora-equipped atheist, quote-unquote, debates Christians.
Okay, please note the contrast between the flat stereotype of the average fedora-equipped atheist and the flat stereotype of Christians who just care about their communities and culture and want to defend nice-looking families who walk under trees. And even try to tell me this is anything more than blunt-headed propaganda.
They attack the historical validity of Scripture, the obvious logical missteps of an ancient text, and smugly congratulate themselves for being so much smarter than those theist nincompoops, all the while missing the point entirely. Science disproves the validity of claims in the Bible. Sure, I'm not disputing that.
Okay, you don't dispute that, but many people do. So stop pretending that there's no large fundamentalist movement in this country, that there's no use in atheists challenging those fundamentalists, and that we're just smug fedora models patting ourselves on the back for debunking things nobody believes. Many people do believe the Bible is literally true, and if you're as liberal in your theology as you claim to be, you should be among the first to thank us for standing up to them.
But I'm talking about the benefits of religion as a social institution. Where is the logic behind alienating, demonizing, and ultimately removing an essential moral and social foundation that humans in one way or another have embraced since prehistory from Western society?
You don't get to talk about demonizing people after your crude betrayal of atheists. But that aside, I have no interest in demonizing anybody, nor do I want to sweep away everybody's moral foundation. I want to help them recognize that their moral foundation comes from personal values shaped by culture and family, not from the Bible, and that the Bible is at best a distraction in the ongoing conversation about these values.
And replacing it with, oh yeah, that's right, nothing but a sucking vacuum that is currently being filled by another and arguably extremely virulent and aggressive religion that finds atheism, ironically, to be among the worst crimes a man can commit. When you say you don't need God to be a moral person, I totally agree with you. I don't either. But 86% of the planet does.
No. This is so dead wrong, and I'm not totally sure you have any clue how deeply you just insulted religious people. You just straightforwardly stated that the claims of most religions are not true, and that some of us enlightened people can figure out morality without God, while all those uneducated masses would be lost without the directives of organized religion. Even the proselytizing, crusading Richard Dawkins would chastise you for the disrespect you're showing Christians here.
What an amazingly patronizing and condescending thing to say. We intellectuals, of course, know that it's not true, but all those poor people out there, they need religion. I mean, what a condescending thing to say about all those people.
And on a purely factual level, I'm wondering where you get the statistic that 80% of the people in the world need religion to be good. Even if these people do participate in religion, that doesn't mean they need it, making your conclusion as sloppy as it is demeaning.
And that 16% that has no God are generally concentrated in two places, the West and the Far East. Both places, I might add, suffering from demographic implosion. Theories on the evolution of religion tend toward two camps. One argues that religion is a mental artifact co-opted from brain functions that evolved for other tasks, while the other contends that religion benefited our ancestors. Rather than being a byproduct of other brain functions, it is an adaptation in its own right. In this explanation, natural selection slowly purged human populations of the non-religious, as the non-religious are doing now by self-selecting small families or no children at all. But neither of these theories tell us why religion has been the glue that has held human societies together since the Stone Age.
Sure. Over time, religion has been one factor that's helped hold societies together, but it's also pitted them against each other. It encourages tribal thinking and suspicion of outsiders, and whatever benefits it provides society is based on superstition and is thus prone to producing misguided, often harmful traditions. If we shed all the other obsolete relics of ancient society, why not this one?
Science is an incredible and important tool for furthering our understanding of the universe and oftentimes comes into conflict with religious teachings. Science, though, and it should be said, has been and is currently profoundly handicapped when it comes to explaining consciousness, which is an important, if not the most important component when it comes to understanding reality. A rational mind should obviously adjust their understanding of the universe to scientific findings. However, only an irrational person would advocate for the abandonment of the essential functions of religion and the unique character of our species' spiritual nature.
If we have what you call a spiritual nature, then why not use science to try to understand it? Why not dig to the bottom of what mystifies us, what inspires us, and what stirs our most profound emotions? Then try to understand these feelings so we can be deliberate about how we handle them, instead of just being blindly led by them.
A good synthesis and example is Japan. In Japan, the number of people that believe in God, for a want of a better word, is very small. However, whether a believer or not, the religious rituals associated with the various stages of life, birth, coming of age, death, as well as traditional festivals and ceremonies are intertwined in the Japanese culture. Whether a believer or not, people wanting babies, hoping for a good outcome in an important test, wanting good luck for the new year, or health for their ill family member, will head to a shrine, give their offering, and make their prayers.
If people find any meaning in these rituals, there's a good chance that many of them, even while rejecting a broader notion of God, retain some belief that acting out these old superstitions might somehow impact their ability to pass tests, have children, or improve their health. And as far as they do, their ability to intelligently deal with life's problems will remain at least somewhat hampered. If, on the other hand, they flatly don't believe it, then it's all just pageantry. And I guess that's fine, even though I don't really see how it's that important. I have no problem with people going through rituals for cultural or social reasons, as long as they have a healthy understanding of what that ritual is. But getting to that understanding requires extensive education in science and critical thinking that, as far as it explicitly addresses these rituals, would start to sound like, well, atheism.
The moral codes of Buddhism as well as the sensitivity of Shintoism are intertwined with the culture, and while the vast majority of people have no belief in God, the spiritual, social, and cultural black hole that is atheism has never taken root in Japan. The point is, you don't have to subscribe to total belief to see the value of traditional spiritual guidance and morality.
So you say atheism is a big black hole, for some dumb reason, and you say this big black hole of atheism hasn't taken root in Japan. Yet you also say the majority of people in Japan have no belief in God. So what are these people with no belief in God if not atheists? And what is an atheistic society if not one in which the majority of people don't believe in God? In order to claim that this godless Japanese society is somehow non-atheistic, you narrow your definition of atheist from people who disbelieve in God to people who flatly reject every traditional norm of culture that might be tied to religion. I suppose this works if you just want to whip up unfounded fear of atheism, but otherwise, all it does is confuse any conversation we might have about how secular and religious society interact. Even if godless Japanese accept many traditions of Buddhism and Shintoism, they still won't swallow everything wholesale. Without fundamentalist belief, I'm sure they pick out the good parts of these traditions and leave behind things that are harmful, culturally obsolete, or serve no purpose other than worship. In other words, they use their minds to develop intelligent moral ideas. Then, when possible, they find aspects of their tradition that intersect with what they already understand about decent behavior, just like many Western atheists do. This is nothing more than adding labels and pageantry to secular values. But the values themselves can stand without the tradition, And I don't at all buy into your insinuation that we'll collapse into anarchy if we stop using the word Christianity to describe our ever-evolving cultural norms.
In contrast, in place of religion in the modern West, there is moral relativism and nihilism, which is the new religion of modernity, where everything and anything is acceptable, so long as it's backed up by and couched in a grandiloquent argument.
I have to say this was a pretty strange video. It's hard to tell exactly what this guy's even getting at. He seems to disbelieve the Bible and thinks atheists have reason to do so themselves. But then he veers toward a vague belief in spiritualism, then denies that anybody actually believes the Bible, so atheists are just jerks for arguing against it. Then he more or less settles on the patronizing argument that religious belief, even if it's false, is good for society. Yet it's hard to even parse out the role he thinks these religions should play, because he acknowledges that they do and should reflect society's ever-evolving sense of morality. In general, and this follows from having seen more of his videos, Black Pigeon Speaks is a semi-racist wanker who yearns for some version of the good old days, but can't even sort out what those good old days are. For that matter, he doesn't even seem to know what atheism is. But it, like immigrants, is some vague, scary new thing that is different from, and thus threatening to, whatever he feels the past used to be. I'm not sure whether this haphazard lashing out is better or worse than hardcore fundamentalism, but sadly it seems to be an increasingly popular sentiment in our culture. And with that cheerful thought, I turn it over to you, GC.
Thanks so much for joining me in this video, Prophet of Zod. It was a pleasure working with you. If you're watching this video and liked what you saw, please head over to PZ's channel and subscribe. He makes some really good content in my opinion. Anyhow, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, despite its length. If you've made it this far, please let me know in the comment section whether you would like to see longer videos like this one in the future. Take care and cheers.
I like big bubbles and I cannot lie. You Christian brothers can't deny that when a girl walks in with a KJV and a bookmark in Proverbs, you get stoked. Got a name engraved so you know this girl is saved. It looks like one of those large ones with plenty of space in the margins. Oh baby, I wanna read with ya, cause your Bible's got pictures. My minister tried to console me, but that book you got makes
me so holy.
Ooh, Mamma Mia, you say you want koinonia? Well, bless me, and teach me about John Wesley. I saw her praying while I was DJing. She got grace, pretty face. She ain't going down to the bad place. I'm tired of heathen guys saying they like pocket size. Ask the average Christian to take a look. She gotta pack much book. So fellas, fellas, have your girlfriends got the book? Oh yeah. Well, read it, read that holy book, baby. Y'all NIV with the ribbon bookmark. NIV with the ribbon bookmark. Baby got NIV with the ribbon bookmark. NIV with the ribbon bookmark.